Hello viewers, Super GT here. This has got to be one of the most tense races I've had in a fair amount of time. It took place around the Alsace circuit. This is a track I made a video about recently, this very race, and I enjoyed it so much that even after that video I continued racing to see what I could do, and this was the result. Now, just a reminder for those who didn't watch that first video, it's a 4-lap race around the Alsace reverse circuit in Group 3 cars. And therefore everyone pretty much going for the Nissan GTR. The top 3 here, including myself, all in the GTR. And immediately I'm going to gain a position here at the top of the hill as R2 there in second, getting a poor run on the exit of the uphill awkward left-hander. And as we move up into second here, this starts quite a tense race. I think tense really describes it. I do recall my heartbeat being immensely high, probably over 9,000 beats per minute, something like that, in that region. And this is the result of lots of practice, not only for me but also the guy in the lead. He was very quick, and therefore it would take everything for me not only to try to beat him but just to even keep up. And so after a lot of practice, a lot of qualifying, came to this race, and it was a very, very close one indeed. So halfway through the first lap, as you can see, Pumpkin in the lead, extending a 1 second advantage so far. We've managed to pull away from the guy in third by 3/4 of a second. And I knew that I was in for a very tough challenge here, just to catch up. So that is my main focus at the moment, just to try to get back into that slipstream range. I know that we technically are, but I think when you start getting towards half a second behind, that's when you really begin to notice the full effect of the slipstream, and we are not quite there yet. Coming towards the final corner, end of lap number 1, on the brakes just before the curb, trail braking the car in, maybe a little bit too deep there, not getting the exit we would like. We end the lap still in the tow by 0.9 seconds. Coming up the hill, trying to nail these perfect laps to try to catch back up this small advantage that the leader is holding, albeit an important one. You might have noticed there a bit of a slide on the exit from the leader, and we've gained 1/10 of a second, and it sounds like such a minimal amount, and in many ways it is, but in many ways it isn't. 1/10 in such a close fight can be very important indeed, and you want all the tenths to go your way rather than the other way. And so I just need to put together a couple more corners where I can just gain half a tenth or even 1/10, and then we are back into that slipstream range through the long banked left-hander. Still 3/4 of a second behind, not quite gaining enough. Just shows you how close and consistent this fight is into this tricky right-hander onto the power before you get under that sign. Maximising the track width. Alsace is a very wide track, one of the widest in the game, and so you do have to get used to getting on the power earlier than you normally would around other tracks. And I think we are gaining here. The gap is going to come down below 7/10 of a second. This very long right-hander. Lots of very long right-handers, especially through the middle sector of this track. And then onto the brakes. This corner banked downhill, back uphill on the exit. And get on the power very early. And I noticed Midnight Pumpkin doing a much better job of that than me, and that gap goes back up to 9/10 of a second. Coming up to the end of the second lap, so halfway into the race, and I haven't really done as much damage to this lead as I would like. Noticing on the exit there though, just drifting slightly wide onto the curb, luckily not losing control of the car, and I felt like I was strong on the first part of this lap. Pumpkin was struggling with this corner here. It is a tricky corner, it goes very wide onto the grass, and just like the previous lap, he's going to lose a couple of tenths. And as you can see, I'm going to slowly gain over the crest of the hill. The gap comes down to half a second, and now we're in that sort of area where we could start thinking about going for an overtake. Maybe not just yet, but if I can just gain another tenth or two, then we're certainly in with the shout. 3/10 behind now, and the pressure is most certainly on. So it just shows you there, the first 2 laps were very, very close indeed, and I wasn't really able to gain too much. But then a couple of mistakes here, just creeping in, and it just shows you've got to keep the pressure up. And I could potentially go for this move here. We're not going to go for it. there was definitely half a chance, and it could have worked. But I'm going to wait for a slightly better chance, which could be a bad decision, but we'll find out. Into the braking zone, going a little bit deep there, missing the apex by half a car width. And as a result of that, as you can see, the gap extends slightly back up to 0.6 of a second. It's very much yo-yoing on lap 3 here as we go through the right hander, dropping down into this braking point, into this long left, dipping down back on the power by the time you get to the apex, slightly into the gravel on the exit. That's going to lose us some crucial momentum here, and as you can see, compared to the beginning of the lap, that gap has certainly extended 0.7 of a second now, and I might be left to rue that missed opportunity of that overtake I could have maybe gone for. Very wide from Pumpkin on the grass, luckily keeping that one together, very well held, but the gap comes back down to 0.4 as we head through this turn 1 into the left of 2, and he's got, oh my goodness, really losing control of that car almost, but thankfully for him, keeping it just about together. I'm going to look for the inside. It's not quite going to happen here. Down the hill, but we're really making a good go of this. Going to go for this overtake. We've got 1 lap left to do it. This is the final lap of the race. Right in the tow now, but it's very difficult to get alongside into this banked corner. We're going to try it. Maybe from here, it could be too far back. We're going to have to take the racing line and follow through and wait for the next corner. Look how close we're getting in that rear view. Back over to the left hand side, not close enough to go for this move, just keeping that pressure up as much as possible and try to force an error from the leader. The guy in third, not too far away, ready to pick up the pieces should anything go wrong. Onto the brakes. Let's not mess up this corner like we did on the previous lap. That is a lot better. He's very wide, losing control almost. I'm looking to the inside. He's going to block me off. I'm going to have to go to the left, long way round. We're going to try and perform the switcheroo here and put him out of position. He's going to go into the left-hander here, narrow, and I'm aware of that, trying to get the better exit here onto the back straight. Here we go, better exit over to the left-hand side. I knew the left-hand side would be crucial. I've just got the momentum, and this is going to give me the inside line for the final corner of the final lap of the race, trying to spot my braking point and try to control the corner from the inside. He's going to fight it around the outside. Brave move, but he is going to drift slightly wide. And with barely 100 metres left to go, we're going to win the race. Pumpkin ends up spinning out on the curb. And my goodness, what a close finish. I led the race for about 5 seconds, but crucially, it was the last 5 seconds, and those are the seconds that matter. And here's what happened from his point of view. Goes in quite narrow into this turn, and therefore doesn't quite get the exit. Can't get on the power as early as I'd like. And that gives me the crucial momentum. I go to the left hand side, could have gone to the right, the space was there, but I knew I wanted the left in order to have the inside for this final turn. And then it was a brave attempt to try it around the outside, but it was very hard to make that one work, and unfortunately there's contact. He's awkwardly on the curb and ends up getting spun around and drops ultimately there into 4th position. 1st to 4th, that must be very heartbreaking. And this is the thing I noticed, they were making a lot of mistakes on the exit of that corner. That was lap 2, that was lap 3, and this one was lap number 4. And I think it was just that consistency, or lack of consistency, that cost Pumpkin quite a lot of time. I would say at least half a second, and that probably would have been the difference. This mistake also crucial, because what happened here, they go to the right, and I knew that if I could just get him to go into this following left-hander narrow, it would give me an advantage going onto this straight. And here, this was a crucial moment here, really, because I could decide, I'm on the power earlier, I could decide to go to the right here, there. I knew I just had to get on this left-hand side. I did not want to be going into the final corner on the right, as it's just really hard to overtake around the long way round, and that, this kind of proves it. And there, off he goes. Brave attempt, but it was going to be really difficult to make that one work. And wow, what a race. I can recall my heart rate was very high. at the end of that race, just really fighting for one opportunity to go for the race win, and I managed to thankfully do it. This is the next race, up against the BMW, and this one was really interesting because the Nissan GT-R is the dominant car, the go-to car, but the BMW was a very solid option, and it was a car that was chosen by a fair amount of players on this race. But the one advantage that the Nissan GT-R had over that car really was the straight line speed. But going on to this back straight, I think it was clearly a weakness of mine looking back at this, that I was not able to get onto that straight quickly. A lot of the other cars were getting better acceleration onto that straight, and therefore I couldn't really get the move done at the end of the straight. Therefore, you see here, the BMW just staying ahead. I am very close. I'm a lot closer than I was in the previous race, but just not close enough in the correct kind of places. So you can see here, sliding quite a lot. Are we going to be able to get this move done? I'm going to stay over to the right. They fully cover that off, and I'm not really able to go into any gap. But just like the previous race, really trying to get the car in front out of position to give them really bad exits of the corners, and therefore you can try to out-drag them on the exit. Like this, as they went in narrow to the hairpin, I was able to take a wider line in and get a better traction on the way out. This gives me half a chance here into this banked corner, but it's not an easy corner to send it in. You see there, I had to back out. That would have been a big accident had I kept my foot in there. There's not really a braking point. It's not really a braking zone for that turn, and so it's very difficult to overtake unless you're fully alongside by the time you already get there. A little bit later on lap number 2, still again having the issue where I'm not close enough onto this back straight and therefore into the final corner. And so half the race done, and this guy's done a very solid job of keeping me behind, and I'm not really able to press the issue just yet. But we are keeping the pressure up and trying to make sure we're in the right place if the guy makes a mistake. And it looks like, again, that was not a good exit. And this time they are going to open up the inside, and that's going to give me the space to drop down the hill and into the lead of the race. It just shows you, I think, what I was noticing in this race and the previous race. I was very strong on certain sections of the track, and other people were stronger on other sections. So it's quite clear on the uphill left-hander, I was this corner here, I was quite strong, and therefore I was able to make quite a lot of overtakes coming out of there. Now the BMW, you know, he gave me a good fight. He actually managed to keep up all the way to the end, so I can never fully rest on this race. And it was a really good challenge from this guy, to be honest, in a car which I would say is maybe a tenth or two at least slower than the GT-R, maybe 3 or 4 tenths at least. But we managed to set the fastest lap on the final lap, and that was 2 wins. But how about the third race? Let's take a look at this one. Starting in P3. Once again, up behind the Mazda Atenza. So R2 here was going for a range of cars, and fair play for trying some different machinery on this race. The leader, Distinct Thunders, with a very quick qualifying time, if I recall, inside the top 10, if not the top 15 in the world, and so trying to beat them would be incredibly difficult. My first obstacle, of course, is the Mazda Atenza in front, trying to get past them, and at least trying to move into P2. At the end of the first lap, as you can see, getting fairly close, but not quite close enough to really go for a solid move into the final turn. And I must say, this track, I really enjoyed it. I think Alsace, it has a mixed reputation, I think it's fair to say. I never used to really like it, but the more I play it, the more I do actually enjoy it. I think it is a very good track for Group 3 cars. It lends itself to good racing. There's lots of overtaking opportunities available, such as this one. I mean, this was definitely my favourite move, getting the traction on the exit of the uphill left, and then once people open up that gap, you can just dive into it and then overtake into the downhill right. And that was my most favoured move, I would say, on this race. Moving up into second. Now I think Thunder's maybe got a bit bored of being miles in the lead, so quite clearly slowed down here, and I thought, okay, that's alright, let's see if we can keep up with a very, very fast player around this combination. As I said, top 15 in the world, I think it was, terms of qualifying time. And so just trying to keep up with this type of guy in a race is always a good challenge. So let's see if we can do it for this next lap. And into the final corner, it's always good to get behind a fast player, because then you can really truly see their lines and see what they're doing, seeing how late they're braking, and seeing exactly what points on the track that they're gaining. And you can see it here, trying to get a really good run through this turn by carrying a lot of speed through the corner, maximising the track width. And that's something the best players do: maximise the track width on both sides, on the entry, on the apex, on the exit, and getting on the power as early as possible, just carrying as much speed, and that gives you advantage through the corner, but then of course on the exit onto the next straight. And so you see I'm keeping up slightly, kind of. He is pulling away a little bit, but I think I'm doing a decent job of keeping up here, not too bad. But I think it was this corner coming up where slightly unravelled, looking for my braking point, and I just carry it a little bit wide, don't quite get on the power. You can see actually he takes a much later apex and is able to get onto the power early as a result. I lose 2/10 there. And then into this one, this is where his race unravelled, because unfortunately I'm going to drift wide. Classic mistake, trying to push the limits, and boom, before you know it, you are over it and you're facing perpendicular into the wall, which is not an ideal scenario. Before you know it, back in the lead, and it's going to be 3 wins from 3, and including one of the most tense races I've had. So really enjoyable couple of races. I really hope you enjoyed watching that. Please do let me know your thoughts. In the meantime, have an amazing day. There's another video on the screen for you right now for your viewing pleasure. Have an amazing day. I shall catch you next time. Goodbye.